3, 2, 1. And I believe we are live. In Chatelet, my niggas, and welcome to Polecat Cast number 126.
Jesus Christ. How did I not know that was coming?
I don't know.
That's not Jesus. Jesus is a lot older than Brian. A lot.
Polecat Cast number 126, PewdiePie. The race war, skill shaming, and hooking up with Nazis, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Mind your spines for the cringe, hold on to your sides for the lulls, and keep your chemo at the ready for this cancer. Today's Polecat panel consists of Max Darrett, Simpsonskin, and definitely not Professor Zoom. By the way, I'm starting to run out of yellow characters.
Dude, don't worry about it if you repeat it. You've gone on so long. I love it.
Against humanity. What did he do, you ask? Did he kill a hooker after letting her pee on him? Did he recruit young children as joining ISIS? Did he murder a girlfriend with a pistol in the wake of championing feminism while on mushrooms? That's just a random scenario that I'm just pulling out of my ass. No, my friends. He dropped the mother of all bombs, the N-bomb. Hold on to your butts. I'm very excited.
Nagasaki?
No. Yeah, close. Nagasaki. I am very excited for the new side-scrolling platform shooter Cuphead, which has a really cool retro-style animation akin to Fleischer Studios. Unfortunately, it seems to have what some are calling the dark souls of tutorials, as even veteran game journalists of over 15 years struggle to finish the brief intro level. Guys, a jumping dash is hard, and it's only for players that are MLG as fuck, you know what I mean? Lynn Orletsky, a high school math teacher, has kicked some students out of her class for wearing a Make America Great Again t-shirt, comparing them to Nazi swastikas. The Trump derangement syndrome has mutated, my friends, and it is stronger than ever. Do you need further proof of Trump derangement syndrome? Look no further than Corey Lane, feminist, progressive, and still with her. So then why does she consistently have mind-blowing sex with Trump supporters despite her hatred for them? A young single mother has beaten her 8-month-old baby with a wooden spoon and has threatened to throw her baby from a balcony to police. Her punishment? 2 years good behavior bond and a $500 fine. No, really. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. They used to scoff at the idea that taking the red pill would wake those to the truth, the fact that there is a lot of information being kept from the general public that needs to be explored. The media, academics, and activists thought it was a silly notion, and those who purport it should be shamed, dismissed, destroyed. But now folks are getting sorted, woke, and red-pilled all over the internet. They are cleaning their rooms and breaking the conditioning. The opposition seems to be losing ground, or at least they don't have as much control over the narrative as they used to, and they don't know what to do about it. They could examine the information that the red-pilled provide, or typically discuss, and perhaps provide counter-evidence, reason, arguments, and that kind of thing. You know, stuff that's worth something. But no, it would seem that they are instead going to target the phenomenon itself and try to stop it from spreading. And we'll be reading an article about just that, how to stop the red pill influence. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows, either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. So, welcome everyone to the show. If we haven't already been demonetized, which I'm sure we have. So, let me go.
It really seems like you're trying to do that. Like, what was it, the thing that you were doing where you changed all the language?
Oh, I was trying to reach out to our people that only speak Pidgin, because we may have a Pidgin speaking audience. I mean, it's what the BBC does, so you know.
Okay. I didn't know that was a large part of our audience. Like, it's not like the people that don't like us are not going to use that against us or anything.
Well, I mean, we can't really know exactly what size it is, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be considerate, Max, and try to like accommodate them occasionally. So
that's what she said.
Yeah, I was just about to say we don't know what size it is. Jesus.
Besides, my take on it afterwards totally shields Brian because it was worse.
Oh yeah, and your take was
referring to the actual animal.
Oh pigeon. Yes, the pigeon itself.
the pigeon call,
I've-
which I have, by the way, successfully used to lure pigeons to the bird tree that all of the birds in the neighborhood like to sit in my parents' neighborhood at least once, just to get revenge on somebody who parked his car underneath the tree.
Nice.
Actually, I know pigeons that have really, really great YouTube channels and speak really good English. So at least one.
Well, yeah, it's kind of silly to just presume that somebody isn't, presume somebody incapable of understanding proper English simply because they have a vernacular that is spoken in their local area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get into the stories. I will start with the first one, Max. You'll be doing your write-up, but it's a little bit later. So
that's cool.
Because I thought you were going to be late, and I didn't want to. Normally I open up with Max, but can't do it this time. Okay, local man utters naughty word. While in a heated game of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I guess that's the name of the game? Never heard of it.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Okay. Felix Kjellberg, I think that's how you say it, better known as YouTube sensation PewdiePie, uttered an N-word during a particularly stressful round. This should be a familiar and relatable situation to any seasoned multiplayer gamer. A situation gets tense, you lose your cool, you shout out something regrettable, you apologize if needed, and then you continue on. Which is exactly what Kjellberg did. But the scent of blood was already in the water. Video game-related news outlets have run article after article concerning this glorified non-event since. I think at this point there's like 50 or so. Where the situation becomes interesting is when Sean Vanaman, a member of video game developer Campo Santo, who are most notable for making the game Firewatch, decided to get involved. Herp de derp de derp. This is my chance to virtue signal. Vanaman took to Twitter to indulge in some virtue signaling of the highest caliber, condemning Kjellberg of being worse than a closeted racist and a propagator of despicable garbage that does real damage to the culture around this industry. Not content with this alone, Vanaman also vowed to file a DMCA takedown against all of Kjellberg's Firewatch content, as well as any future videos featuring Camposanto games. Vanaman has made his intentions clear. He wants to cut PewdiePie off from the content that has made him a millionaire. Kjellberg has since released a brief apology video acknowledging that he made a mistake and that he commits to doing better in the future. Does anybody want to say anything before I get on it?
Do you know, I think the only time he actually fucked up was when he apologized and said, "Sorry, I meant asshole." Until then, he could have got. Until then, it was something any black person would have said, because it's very much a hip hop thing just to call everyone nigger. So if someone just pulls any kind of move, say, "Look at this nigger! Look at this nigger over here!"
Yeah.
But the fact that he then qualified it by saying, "Sorry, I meant asshole," he just dug himself right in. Don't even do the first step of apologizing, Felix.
Okay, first of all, sup my N-words. Second of all, I just want to say, before we get into the
wait, Max, wait. Before you do, okay.
Yeah.
When you this is I agree with this 100%. There's a joke that Louis C.K. has said about when people say N-word. When you say N-word, you put the word in the person's head and you make them say it. So just say nigga, my nigga.
No, it's just look. It's not that I'm afraid of saying it.
I'm not telling you to say it. I get it.
It's not that I'm afraid of saying it. It's just like some words just sound bad, like when on your tongue. It's like I don't like to say the word D-bag just because it's just like ugh. It's hard to explain.
Okay.
But anyways, there's a couple sides to this. First of all, when it comes to Felix as a personality, as somebody that is watched by 57 million people, he's an idiot. He's an idiot because look. If you're going to have such a large portion of your audience be, 14-year-old kids around the world, this is, swear all you want, say mother effer or whatever, but, when it comes to using racial slurs, I understand that that's going to happen, and people, say that in gaming, and that it's not coming from a place of racial hatred. That happens all the time, but when you're the lead personality on one of the world's biggest social media websites, you got to be a little bit more careful. Like even in this apology video that he said that he put out a few hours ago, he's like, clearly I haven't learned anything. And on that level, when it just comes to being a public personality, he really messed up, because whenever it comes to saying any type of racial epithet, he should know how the internet works, right? Having said that, does anybody here honestly think that this guy's a racist? No.
No way.
No.
I have a few different views on this, but Max, are you done?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. Okay, so let's say that there's the practical or pragmatic look of, PewDiePie has a large channel, and it might be bad for his channel if he used language that could alienate people or that could piss people off. Obviously, if you have 50 million, 57 million followers and you use like the wrong kind of curse words, then you could piss people off. You're going to piss people off because there's a large portion of the population that takes offense to these words, so it wouldn't be good for your channel. And I guess there's that view, which I think is, it's pretty pragmatic, and I can't really say much else about it, except that if you were looking at stuff that's going to damage your brand, that's probably something you should not say. Having said that, I also think that the mistake he made is apologizing for it, because what happened after he apologized for it that I saw was that all social justice warriors just double down and they attack, because that's what they do when you apologize. It's never enough, no matter what you say. And the best thing to do is simply stand your ground, and you don't have to necessarily say, I meant what I said then or whatever, but you basically stand your ground in that, because I said this word in a heated moment, while I was playing a video game, doesn't mean that I agree with all of the baggage that comes with this word just because I said it. And I think you could do that, and that should be totally fine. So I think that's what I would say would be his mistake, is apologizing, because people have latched onto it big time because he did it, and he didn't do it to their satisfaction. They either said, I don't buy it, I think he's still racist, because he was willing to say this in public, who knows what he says in private, all this mind-reading shit is happening, or they're saying, oh, he's not apologizing because he said something, he's apologizing because he got caught, he's apologizing that he hurt people, as opposed to all this stuff that I've seen. The third thing, which I think for me is the most important thing, is this. I have always lived in... I grew up and was born and raised in the minority parts of Chicago, in largely black and Latino neighborhoods. Okay, with black neighbors, and I went to school with black students, and I've known them. I've known black people my entire life. Been around them, and I've been very close friends with them, and I've dated them and everything. In my experience, okay. This word has too much power, and it bugs the crap out of me that it is enough to send people over the edge. And one day I would like, and I know that for me, this is a point that I want to make about the word nigger anyway. Okay. This word needs to die. And the only way this word is going to die is if people stop freaking out every time somebody says it, no matter what the context is. And I know that it has baggage associated with it, but no word should have that much power. And I think that, for example, other words have tried to claim the same amount of power that the word nigger has. Two that come to mind is faggot and cunt, okay? And those also get used in online gaming discourse by people. And I think that's for multiple reasons. One, it's like the most triggering thing you can say, and so edgelords want to use it to piss people off. Another is because you could use it like when you're playing competitively and you want to throw somebody off, try to say that stuff to them and see if it doesn't damage their psyche so that you could win a competitive game of something. And another is there are probably people who for sure mean it when they say it. But the only way that these things can affect you is if you allow them to. Anytime a person gets offended, it's their fault. That's what I think. I think that there is a degree of self-control that can be exercised. Like, I was debating this online with Brittany Simon, who I've had on the show as a feminist, and I told her, she tried to equate it to, say using kike as a way to demean Jewish people. And the way I see it, and this is just somebody who grew up around it, and I heard the word a lot, most of it used by people in the black community, okay, against, either as a term of endearment or as a term of offense or as something that's completely neutral. you can call me whatever you want. I don't care if people call me a spick or a wetback or whatever you can come up with. Block hopper, I don't give a shit. It's not going to faze me. It doesn't necessarily make you racist. It doesn't have any effect on me at all. And what I would weigh that against as a comparison is if somebody just says the word nigger in casual conversation, or they say it online because something made them mad, or they're trying to be an edgelord, or they're fucking LARPing, or whatever it is, okay? I would find that completely, like, inoffensive. Like, it wouldn't affect me at all. Even if I was black, it had no effect on me. However, if somebody was actually, and this is where I think it gets tricky because you have to be careful with people that police language. There are people who could make actually extremely dangerous calls for violence or genocide or, attacks like that are verbal, that are significantly more damaging without actually saying a foul word at all. They could do it and that would be considered okay, while this would not, or at least people would be less sort of less prone to react so emotionally and viscerally to it. So for me anyway, I think this word is one of those things that the more that we treat it like a taboo, the more powerful it gets. And I think that the only way we can take power away from it is for us to be able to essentially use it with absolute freedom and liberty. And I think that what would happen is it loses its taboo, and then people become less interested in saying it. I would go ahead, Max.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you, dude. Just one quick thing. To all the people that are sort of being trigger happy with the dislike button because of what I said, look, I agree with everything that Brian says. I think that the word needs to lose power. I'm just saying that when it comes to like a PR, from a PR standpoint, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to say racial epithets and you have that large of an audience, like,
I agree.
How do you?
I agree with that because I said that in the beginning. I said the first thing is there's like the pragmatic sort of, is this going to damage my brand? Is this bad for business? Is this going to hurt my channel? Like there is that, right? And I think that,
right.
He's basically thinking about that. That's why he probably, once he said it, you could see that he was like, shit, I wish I didn't say that. Not because I wish people didn't figure out I was closeted racist, more like, oh, this is going to piss people off, right? And so I could see that. That's being pragmatic. That's trying to be practical. But what I'm making an argument for here is something that is beyond this. And this is not something that I'm saying, PewdiePie, you can save us all if you just start using the word nigger whenever you want. You can change everybody's minds. It's not going to happen overnight.
We already have iDubbbz for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole point of taking back the word, as I believe it's called, is as Brian was saying, it has too much power. Once upon a time, it had the power to silence black people. So the tactic black people took was not to try and censor it, but to run in the opposite direction and use it all the time, use it to describe each other, invent an entire branch of music in which the second most common word is after the. And sort of this is the end result, or at least the end result would have worked. Unfortunately, we've gone right out the other side, and now that same word has the power to silence white people. There are generations of white kids who grew up, listening to hip hop and movies, and in some cases, growing up in black neighborhoods, or largely black neighborhoods, where they hear the word nigger over and over again for their whole lives, and so they repeat it once, as anyone would. And boom, they're racists, and all this fucking hysteria goes on. Black people took the word back, and now they need to share it with everyone, including white people. Can you do that for us?
Yeah,
that's a very good point. What really needs to happen if this word is not going to be given greater power than the civil rights movement, it has to go the way that fag went on 4chan. And it's not necessarily that we have to go around calling everybody that. But
I love that.
What happened with I
love that how they took fag and it doesn't mean anything, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
That's
it's pretty much gone across the net. It doesn't mean anything. I just got into an argument about this with a social justice warrior on Twitter yesterday. That they were trying to make something of the word fag. And I mean, I've been actually hit with that term, even though I'm a girl. When I was in high school, I hung out with the skaters. And I came from a small town. I've said that a million times, I think. They were not really all that popular. In fact, they were really the bottom of the social totem pole. I actually think they were below the nerds. But I was fascinated because what they did, when they did it well, it took a lot of balance and coordination, and I couldn't do it. And I had great balance and coordination on the monkey bars and up in trees and everything like that. But as soon as there was something moving underneath me that wasn't a bicycle, it was all gone. And so I photographed them the same way that I photographed other sports. And it didn't have the same prediction capacity with them that I did with other sports because I hadn't watched skating as much. So I got a book to learn about the different types of tricks and what was common to go from and to and so on, and interact with them more. And they were already my friends. I was already hanging out with them anyway. And I got better at photographing them. But there was a library book, and I had it at school with me. And of all places, in my calculus class with the nerds who should have known better because they got shit on for being nerds, somebody wrote in black permanent marker on the cover of that book, "Skater Fag." And I had to buy the book because the library wasn't going to take it back with that on it, And of course, I went off on the whole class when I found it at the end of class. We had gone into groups, and I had walked away from my desk. And when I got back to my desk, that was what confronted me. They'd moved it from the lower in the pile of books to the top of the pile so I would see it, written that on it and put it so I would see it. And it was kind of cool for me to watch, on 4chan as the word fag just kind of disappeared. Not that it was not used, but that it became irrelevant. It was a God, I can't think, a suffix, a suffix. It's no longer a full word. It's just part of other words now. And it doesn't mean anything in and of itself because it just floods the discussion. And it's gotten to the point where it just means person. And I would love to see that happen with nigger. Not that it's necessarily needs to just mean person, but that all of the potential sting is taken out of it so that no matter what intent you have behind using it, you can't hurt anybody with it. You can't do shit to anybody with it. I would love to see that happen, but it's certainly not going to happen. It's not going to happen when you have a double standard on the idea of taking it back. You're not taking it back if you say it only doesn't mean anything when black people use it. And you're not taking it back if you say when it gets used, it only is talking about black people. So you can have one or the other. You can have this word is so bad, we have to ban it and nobody should ever say it. Okay. If it's that ugly and that mean and it can't be redeemed, if it's an irredeemable word, it's an irredeemable word. Throw it out, stop using it. Nobody use it. It sucks. But if you got this idea of taking it back, you have to at least, go whole hog on that, because you can't take anything back if you still afford it a degree of power when somebody uses it that is not the right person. And yes, PewDiePie was an idiot for saying that word. It's not something that you just use lightly in a circumstance where it still has that degree of power. And you're dealing with a brand. You deal with things the way they are, and you work towards the way you want things to be. You don't just say, well, I want things to be this way, and I'm going to live as if they are when they're not. But at the same time, the reaction only makes it worse. The reaction doesn't vindicate anybody. It doesn't really change anything about PewDiePie or the use of any particular language or or even whether or not it's deserved for anybody. All it does is perpetuate the ability to use it as a bludgeon.
Yep. I have a couple more things to say on this. One is, you know, to your point, I think that, you know, it's one of these things that we can't covet it, because that does obviously give it more power. There was a clip someone sent me from the old 1960s Star Trek, so like the original Star Trek show. And it was a brief clip where, for whatever reason, Abraham Lincoln was on the Enterprise, and he was like meeting, you know, people that were on the crew, and Captain Kirk introduces Lincoln to Uhura. Okay, it's the black woman that pilots the Enterprise, and Lincoln says, "Oh, the negress," or something. He calls her a negress. Okay, and immediately after that, he apologizes for it. And essentially, like, self-flagellates, right? Like, oh, I wish I, you know, Lincoln says, I wish I hadn't said that. It's so, you know, it's such a wrong thing to say or whatever. And Uhura says, why would that bother me? And she basically makes this statement that, you know, we don't live in a time where these words have any effect on us. These words are not harmful. We actually are completely indifferent to it. We are enlightened. You know, this is the future, right? This is the Star Trek future where you can't racially hurt my feelings anymore. And my being black is simply a byproduct of, you know, my genetics and nothing else. It's not something that I identify with strongly enough that this would actually bother me. And I was watching that clip, and I was thinking to myself, this was made in the 1960s, okay? They were aware of this as a concept, and they actually spoke about it on this show, which is, by the way, owned by Desilu at the time, and that's Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball, who are, you know, what I guess people would consider to be an interracial couple, even though you get into, like, what Latinos are, and it's not really a race. But anyway, that was actually a really interesting statement, because what I get from that is, and this is something else that I've put out there, and I want you guys in the comments, if you guys know more about this than me, because I don't pretend to be an expert on any of this shit, but it's something that I think about a lot, okay? I would wonder if the word nigger is more offensive now than it was in the times of slavery and the times of Jim Crow, even if that was what we believe that it was used for, if it actually bothered people back then as much as it does today. And I would guess that it actually didn't, because it was probably used so commonly that it didn't actually affect anyone as much as it does today. And I think it's because we don't treat it like, we didn't treat it as sacred as we used to, or blasphemous, which I think is another sort of way of treating something as sacred, right? Like, you know, like porn, for example. I'm sorry we're going to that, but that's something that we would consider to be blasphemous. By some people would call it that, but that actually makes it more attractive. It's like the Streisand effect. So that's something else that I would put out there. If you guys in the comments, you know, can correct me or want to co-sign on that or whatever, just say so. It's just something I've been thinking about. On top of that, I got a super chat from Cool Guy. He gave us $5 Canadian, and he says, I was on Sargon of Akkad stream, and he was talking to Felix in DMs. Allegedly, his original plan was to lay low and let it blow over. So he was planning on not saying anything and waiting, but he decided to come out and make a video, which, again, I say never apologize to these people. It never works out. Never apologize, no matter what you did. If you need to apologize, do not do it for them. Do it for an individual that you may have hurt, or, you know, for yourself or whatever. But do not apologize to these people, because it will not work. Now, one last thing is we should probably address the DMCA. So, because this is like another part of the story. So Sean Vanaman, who works, is a member of Campo Santo, which is a video game development studio that made a game called Firewatch, I think. They're trying to get him DMCA'd so that none of PewDiePie's videos that feature his game now or in the future could be shown on his YouTube channel. This is as a way of getting back at him for being such a shitlord with that statement. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just shut up.
don't worry about it, dude. Honestly, just like, look, you honestly think that there aren't other people on YouTube who've played that game and use that word frequently while they're playing games? That, like, are you just going to go after them individually, or are you just going to go after PewDiePie just because he's, you know, famous?
Isn't Firewatch one of those walking simulators too?
Well, I heard it's actually pretty decent. I mean, and I was actually thinking about doing a video on it on my own channel because I do some game analysis, but I don't think that's going to happen now. Just, dude, really, like, look, we get it. He already apologized. You don't. Nobody's going to think that, you know, if you let his videos stay up on his channel that you're endorsing his behavior. Come on. Like, look, it's like what you said. We got to stop letting this word have that much power. Look, it's not a nice word. It's very impolite. It's the history of the word isn't, you know, rooted in anything particularly good. But if you're going to take it overboard like that, what example does that set? You're showing that if somebody uses this particular word, it's pretty clear that he's not saying it with the intent of, you know, that he has racial hatred in his heart. Just give it a rest. Give it a rest.
Well, I want to point out,
someone in the comments said that Firewatch is a friend zone simulator.
I want to point out something with regards to the whole copyright thing. First of all, if these guys are letting people in general use their game as a let's play fodder, so or streaming fodder. So basically, you know, you stream playing a game, they don't file takedown notices of everybody that does that. And to me, I would think that'd be kind of stupid, because it would you know, keep people from taking an interest in their game as much. But they're not doing it to everybody that plays. Then copyright isn't the right argument for this. They could condemn the use of the word, and they'd be well within their rights. We don't want our game associated with this language. We oppose this, blah, blah, blah. That's their business. They have every right in the world to feel and say about it, whatever they do. But the idea of going to use an accusation of violating criminal law, because copyright law has got criminal connotations, at least in the United States, that becomes a problem when they're using it as a bludgeon in a social argument for a number of reasons. Like, first of all, if you determine that streaming your play of a video game is a copyright violation, you have eliminated an entire genre of streaming and videos. All of the Let's Play demonstrations, gone. All of the fun streams, gone. Everything that has to do with demonstrating and discussing video game play, tips, tricks, anything, gone. You can't do it because it's a violation of the game creator's copyright. So they're not just making an accusation, you know, oh, we think this guy's a racist and we don't want to be associated with him. They're using a 20-pound sledgehammer to hammer in a thumbtack, you know, and into something hung on an area of drywall between two studs where it'll go right through the wall, which is really, really stupid. And if it's not a violation of your copyright to demonstrate gameplay, well, you know, joking around and talking and showing, you know, that you're having a good time playing a game, if that's not a violation of your copyright, then neither is it a violation of your copyright to demonstrate gameplay and say something you don't like. So, as far as the copyright is concerned, shut the fuck up before you screw up the video genre that gives your industry free advertising every day. And while I'm at it, if it turns out that this is not only not a copyright infringement, but the individual filing the DMCA knew that and had every reason to know that, had no reason to believe it was a copyright infringement, that's perjury. When you file a DMCA takedown notice, you are filing it under oath. So it may actually be a criminal act to file that claim. So it's something that really should have, they should have really thought long and hard before doing that. It's not a little mistake. It's huge.
Just one little thing to expand on what you just said, Hannah, and awesome job just pointing that out, is the fact that, you know, in respect to that particular genre of video making, where it has to center around playing video games and trying to review them in that way. I can't remember what the statistic was. I might be way off with this, but isn't it like on the average late night on the internet, Twitch streams make up like what, nearly 10% of all internet traffic? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
remember seeing something like that during the discussion around games journalism that took place during the whole Gamergate, like between, I don't remember what part of the whole like year and a half that it was really going, it happened during, but that point was made a couple times.
Are you done, Max?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was done.
By the way, in the meantime, Sarkeesian is still using game footage, either stolen from another channel or just Hitman game footage of John Mack just throwing a hooker into a box for some reason. She's using game footage, second and third hand, to basically lie about those games. Not even a scratch on her. Not even in the gulag. She wouldn't notice if she was in the gulag. She's already disabled all the features.
Yeah. By the way, I looked up this Twitch thing. Apparently, it is on, typically, it's fourth in peak internet traffic. It's the fourth sort of website. So after Netflix and Google and then Apple comes Twitch. So basically, people go Netflix, Google, Apple to watch movies, TV shows, and stuff like that, and then Twitch to watch gaming. So it's actually obviously the biggest gaming one, but it's actually the fourth largest, period. That's crazy. Google may include YouTube.
Yeah,
because YouTube's not listed. So
if you want to kill Twitch, just absolutely kill Twitch. Establish streaming gameplay as a copyright violation, as a criminally actionable copyright violation. Twitch will be dead. That'll be it. No more Twitch.
All right, so I guess there's not much else to do. We could move on to the next story. Sometimes I swear these people, these social justice warriors that get offended on behalf of people, or they get really angry at influential figures like PewDiePie, I think that there's like things at play. Like sometimes I think they like to see these people that get really big, they like to see them fall. So they actually revel in when they make these mistakes so they can like pounce on them. It's like trying to take down a Titan and you just see like a weak spot. And the other thing is, sometimes I think that when I look at the way that the wording of their post is, where they say things like, you know, I'm sick of this child getting more and more chances to make money off of what we make. He's worse than a closeted racist. We're complicit. We've made money off of this 5.7 million views the video has, and that's something for us to think about. You know, stuff like that. Sometimes I think they're lashing out at their dad. Like, just seriously, it sounds like there's some weird anger towards parental figures going on. I don't know. All right. Anyway.
Wait.
Yeah.
You're saying that social justice warriors have parent issues?
I think so.
Wow.
I know. It sounds crazy. I've actually been thinking about this a lot, especially when it comes to, and I've been looking into it somewhat, when it comes to their obsession with representation in, you know, games and film and stuff like that. Sometimes I think it's because of parental issues. Like they're looking for artificial role models. They think that because they lack them and that they want to see it, you know, in their media, that they think everyone else also wants to see it that way. This is another reason why I think I notice a lot. Have you ever noticed how often social justice warriors reference Harry Potter? And it's kind of ridiculous. It's actually really annoying too. And I wonder, it's like, what the like it could be a discussion about real serious political issues and they will reference Harry Potter, and it's like, what the fuck does that have to do with what we're talking about? And I say this as somebody who is you know, pretty knee deep in geeky culture stuff myself, but it's just an observation. So I'm not gonna like get too committed and you know, necessarily plant my flag here, but it's something that I've been looking at. So anyway, next story. The skills that pain the shills. While at a preview event for the vintage looking platformer Cuphead, veteran games journalist Dean Takahashi of the website VentureBeat finds himself the subject of widespread internet mockery after a 26-minute video surfaces of him struggling to play the game. Takahashi takes nearly 3 minutes to complete the incredibly brief tutorial, getting stuck numerous times despite the instructions being laid out in front of him, like really simply. Takahashi then proceeds to spend the next 23 minutes failing to beat the first level, not even making it more than halfway on his first attempt. Takahashi's questionable performance has rekindled a debate surrounding an age-old question. Should video games journalists be good at video games? Takahashi's fellow games journalists were quick to come to his defense, claiming all those daring to question his skills must be gamer-gators, harassers, and even Trump supporters because, you know, reasons. Others in the industry have been less charitable. Marcus Notch Person, I hope I'm saying that, of Minecraft fame stated, "I have to assume that this is some kind of elaborate clickbait. There's just no way," after seeing the footage. Even John Bain, Total Biscuit, stated, "Invariably some journos came out of the woodwork to defend the awful Cuphead player. Of course they did. Competence is anathema to some." This isn't Takahashi's first gaffe in his 25-year career as a games journalist. 25 years! Couldn't play Cuphead. Jumping dash. In 2007, while covering Mass Effect, he misrepresented the game's combat severely and revealed that he didn't know how to level up. In 2011, an article discussing the game Warhammer 40k Space Marine, he claimed the game's design was a ripoff of Gears of War. The glaring fault in his logic being that Warhammer 40,000 predates Gears of War by nearly 2 decades. Takahashi's response to this was to state, "This post is not research-backed journalism. I walked into a room, looked at a game, and offered what I thought about it. I've been doing that professionally for about 15 years. And in 2016, while covering XCOM 2, he claimed to have reached out to the developers to complain about the game's difficulty, seemingly unaware that the game features a plethora of options that makes the game easier. Ultimately, the sentiment expressed by most gamers when answering the question, should video game journalists be good at video games, is that they don't need to be amazing at them, but they need to be good enough. John Total Biscuit Bain sums things up best. You just need a basic level of competence. Basic. If you lack that competence, you essentially start misrepresenting the game badly, which is an actively harmful level of incompetence."
Well, the first thing is, if you are a journalist, and not just a journalist, but a niche journalist, you cover a specific area, to qualify professionally for covering a specific area, you should learn about that area. You don't go into any area of journalism as a complete ignoramus, and claim professional status. That's stupid. It blows my mind that games journalists continually treat games as a topic as if that area is uniquely exempt from that standard. You wouldn't have a journalist whose specific area of coverage, for instance, is medical research, not have any knowledge or understanding of how research is done, or what medicine is used for, how doctors operate, how they work, not how they do surgery, but how they work, and what standards they're subject to and things like that. You certainly wouldn't expect somebody to go write for magazines that cover automotive technology if they didn't know jack or shit about cars, and they didn't know jack or shit about working as a mechanic. They don't have to be an expert. They don't have to have a degree in it. They don't have to have 20 years in the field doing the job. But you have to at least know the thing that you're writing about. That's just basic. It's elementary. It's not ridiculous to have that as a standard. And just because the thing that is being written about is viewed by the majority of the population as a hobby that people do for fun, even though it has a professional end, that doesn't necessarily change that. It's still a standard. It's still a requirement. It blows my mind that these people have this idea that because they are covering a fun time activity, should be exempt. That's just standard journalism. And this idea, I've been doing that professionally for around 15 years, he says. Professionally, for 15 years, he has been admittedly winging it, phoning it in, not doing his job professionally for 15 years. And that's his excuse? I've been getting away with it for 15 years? That's his excuse? That's embarrassing. That's even more embarrassing than playing the game badly because you couldn't understand the instructions, because you didn't pay attention to the instructions. It's almost
like Gamergaters had a point.
Holy fuck!
I know. And by the way, this and the PewDiePie thing, obviously there was like lots of people that were basically saying this is a problem with the game culture in general, with the PewDiePie thing that was attributed to, this is what gamers do. And this is also being talked about in there are articles and opinion pieces and editorials written about this that are basically saying things like, let's talk about, what do they call it? Skill shaming, and how that's a problem. Because what you're engaging in, if you basically say a game journalist should be competent and perform a goddamn jumping dash to a platform, which is basic as fuck, that is skill shaming, and that people should they shouldn't engage in it because it's bad. It's
okay.
It's badong.
Okay, look, you fucking idiots. Listen to me. I understand that maybe Dark Souls isn't exactly comparable to Spyro the Dragon, okay? Obviously, there's going to be some level of skill difference between people that play games. So, assign certain games journalists to certain games. If, I don't know, like you have a greater preference for story-based games, then assign them to games like Portal. Or games like, I don't fucking know, like Firewatch, just because that's on the table.
Or Life is Strange and other walking simulators or bullshit narrative games.
Exactly, yeah. Like, we don't expect you guys to, like, obviously there's going to be assholes who are like, oh my god, you could ask first level Dark Souls. Where it's like, I can play Dark Souls with a fucking Guitar Hero controller. Yeah, those guys are assholes, okay? But when it comes to understanding what games are and how to recommend games to the gaming audience, you got to be able to comment on stuff like how the game controls, how it feels, and how the interactive experience is for the player. If you can't do something as simple as a jump dash, then maybe you're in the wrong fucking industry.
15 years, Max.
15 years.
I'm going to have a Tim Minchin moment here. You know what we call journalism that's not backed up with research? Blogging. That's the difference between a food journalist and a foodie. A food journalist doesn't have to be a brilliant chef, but they at least have to be competent at tasting the food. A foodie just walks into a room, looks at the food, and offers what they think about it. Or a useless, pretentious waste of everyone's attention. Takahashi, whatever your name is. I've only just heard of you.
Yeah. There was something else I wanted to say about that, too. Shit, it was about the skill shaming aspect. There is a problem that games journalists have with this idea that you should be good at games, and I would offer the same thing that everyone else has said. You don't have to be good, but you should be competent. On top of that, people go to websites affiliated with fandoms or with hobbies and interests. Like they go to, maybe like when we used to do that before we had the internet, people would buy magazines. Like you get one about motorcycles or one about ninjas or one about martial arts or one about bodybuilding or about video games or about comic books or whatever. And what you wanted to get for your money wasn't just maybe a sneak preview or like a look at something that is related to your interests that is sort of, that you're getting a preview of, like a new motorcycle for a motorcycle enthusiast, or a new, video game that's coming out, like previews and stuff. But you also want, from the people who are writing the articles, you want to know that the people who write the articles have, not only do they have access to information that you don't have yet, and they're going to share it with you, like they have interviews, or they get the scoops on stuff, but you also want for them to have as much enthusiasm and passion for the interest as you do too, so that when, and I mean, this isn't, I'm talking in general, because there are some people who are just super duper fans, and you can never know as much as they do, but this is for like the wider audience. The person that's writing articles for it should have insight, and knowledge and passion and interest in the fandom, or in the sort of, in this hobby, that they can offer. This is what they're hoping to get something from it that they don't have. So when you see somebody that cannot get through a demo, and you expect them to talk about games, and they're not able to do it even on the most, like, the basic shit, then you cannot count on them to actually be able to talk about this thing that you're interested in. Because there's a good chance they don't know what they're talking about, which has been demonstrated by the fact that they aren't able to get through the fucking tutorial level. So again, you don't, like, somebody in the comments said that they watched some video or stream where some guy played Dark Souls, finished it without getting hit by one enemy one time. And they said they contemplated the piano death after that, which is, I think they're referring to my preferred suicide, which is the piano falling on my head while I'm eating a sandwich. But that's obviously what we don't need, per se. Obviously, you don't need to be that good. But if you're going to review Dark Souls as a reviewer, you should be able to finish the game so you can talk about it. And in order to finish the game, you have to be decent enough at it to be able to finish it. And you don't have to, we have people of different skill levels. So, if the Cuphead doesn't look that hard, at least the part that he was not able to do didn't look that bad. So I'm just basically adding on to it. The reason why people, they want journalists or commentators of their interests to obviously have an interest in those interests, like a genuine one. So people watch Comic Book Girl 19 not because they think she's cute or they like her pink hair, but it's because she knows about comics. She knows about them inside and out. So they watch her for that. They don't want to watch, like, or go to websites that review comics that don't read them, that don't like them, that would rather be doing something else. And you can tell they're phoning it in. They don't want that. So you're going to get rightful, pushback, criticism, insults, whatever, because you're taking people's money and you don't deserve it. That's basically it.
That is something else. You nailed something else about niche journalism that I didn't make that point earlier, and I should have. You go into an area like this because you're passionate about the topic, and you're passionate about the topic because you're passionate about not just knowing about the topic, but the active end of the topic, generally speaking. Even at, like, say you're going into journalism around NASCAR. You don't necessarily have to be passionate about being a NASCAR driver, but you would be a passionate NASCAR fan to be a NASCAR journalist.
You should know something about cars. You should
know something about cars.
Yeah, like, but sports guys.
Even more than that, you should be interested in cars and understand why other people are interested in them. And you should be interested in racing and understand why other people are interested in racing. And to be a games journalist, it should be the same way. And the journalists on the other side of the Gamergate controversy, the games journos, have continually demonstrated that they don't understand why people are interested in games. They don't understand why people are passionate about games. They don't understand why people play games. They don't understand why it's a hobby that people engage in extensively, versus the filthy casual end of it, which I pretty much fall into now due to a complete lack of time. and have for years, unfortunately. But they don't understand that, and they don't understand the professional end of it at all. Because if they did, they wouldn't treat it the way they treat it. They wouldn't treat it like it was something to spit on. They wouldn't treat it like other people's passion for it was something to spit on. And they wouldn't treat it like the standards of those who have a passion for it are something to spit on. And they do. And can you imagine other niche journalists doing that? I can't imagine somebody writing for Field and Stream, for instance, and just absolutely pissing on the passion for the hunt that other hunters have, or knowing nothing about hunting and writing about hunting, or knowing nothing about nature photography and writing about nature photography, and pissing on a passion for nature photography. That would just not go over well, and nobody would question why it didn't go over well. Everybody would know that was a stupid thing to say. So yeah, it all goes back to knowing your topic and having a passion for your topic. And having an understanding of the people that you're writing for. And it's absolute, it's not just unprofessional, it is incompetence on a catastrophic level to fail at those basic things. And it just, like I said, it blows my mind that an entire area of journalism would be highly populated by people who do that.
It's heresy. No.
Sorry,
it is from the perspective of somebody who's been working as a media person for years.
It's heresy. Max?
Okay, just one quick thing. I heard about this whole Cuphead thing. I understood, like, oh, it's a jump dash. That should be pretty easy. And then I just started thinking, maybe I should give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the button combination is a little bit complicated. And then I watched the video just now while Hannah was talking. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? All you have to do is hold down the right stick and press the A button and then press Y at the top of your jump.
Yep.
Fucking hell,
That's what
dude.
I'm saying. It's a jump dash. It's all it was. I mean, that obviously wasn't the full extent of the wrong that he did, but that was the funniest part. Like, I was just watching that and I was like, this is, you ever like, I have like a nephew, right? And little kid, I remember letting him. He really wanted to play this game that I had, so I gave him a controller and let him play with me. It was Little Big Planet, and he was really little, right? Have you ever like let a little kid play a game that you're pretty good at and watch them struggle, and you know that they're children, so you don't get angry at them, but you do get frustrated watching them play, and you just want to tell them, just press this and then do this, and then you'll be done. It's like this little, it's like an artificial obstacle that they can't get past. It's not like a pit or an enemy. It's just a wall and you need to climb it, or something. Or it's just like a simple instruction, like press up to climb the ladder, and they don't know how to do it. But they're not actually frustrated because they're like 5 and they're just having fun because they're moving something on the screen and colors. But it is that's what I felt when I watched this guy with like 20 years of experience. I mean, he was 15 years of experience when he was talking about an older game, but at this point he's got like close to 20 years or more than 20 years of experience. Watching that is just unthinkable. That's like my mother could make that jump, and she has not played video games since we had an Atari 2600 in 1973 or whatever it was. So it was more like 1979. So yeah, that's just it. It kills me. It kills me.
Can you imagine if this guy tried to play Crash Bandicoot? Sorry.
Well, he probably would give it a 1 out of 5 because it's too hard and unfair. It's not welcoming to young new gamers.
Yeah, honestly, it would be easier. And I can say this from experience. It's easier watching a 5-year-old. I've played video games with a 5-year-old. Well, he's not 5 anymore, but that's like I've said this before. My son partially learned to read playing Breath of Fire 3 with me, and all the games we played were old because that's what we had. I mean, we were pretty broke when he was little, but it really didn't matter because we were playing games together and it was fun. And we played old stuff like that. We played Herc's Adventures. We played a bunch of other neat little things, and there was the whole point of playing together there was the bonding aspect of it, and there was the fact that playing video games is just fun, and then there's the entertainment end of it. But there's also, like, I got to watch him face challenges and overcome them and deal with, you got the initial frustration, and then you've got the stick-to-itiveness where you like try the same thing over and over again until you get it and you make it work. And so I got to watch my kid get good. And right now, I'm actually watching him play on mute because we're broadcasting. I'm actually watching him play one of the Kingdom Hearts games, and I don't know which one, but like he greatly enjoys that as well. And it's kind of cool because it's the same thing. It's exciting to watch somebody that you have an investment in them doing well and in them developing that. Well, if I fail at this the first time, I'm going to try harder. It's great to watch a kid develop that. It's totally different when you're dealing with somebody that is supposed to already have a degree of capability and treats being expected to have a degree of capability and develop a degree of capability and face those challenges as an unreasonable expectation. And that person is an adult. It kind of makes you sad.
Can we get a hashtag trending? Darrett for Takahashi's job.
Yeah, really, you could do it. Do you realize that thanks to games journalists, if it wasn't for like independent YouTubers and people that do like, they just like capture video footage and post them as memes, if it wasn't for them, I might have actually bought No Man's Sky. I totally like dodged a bullet because thanks to the independent folks that weren't being paid off to essentially sell this shitty ass game to people, I almost bought No Man's Sky because I was totally interested until I saw that Jurassic Park clip. That fucking kills me. If you don't know it, just look it up. It's funny as fuck. For No Man's Sky, just look up Jurassic Park No Man's Sky YouTube, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But shall we move on to the next story?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Georgia teacher kicks students out of class for wearing Make America Great Again shirt. Where does freedom of expression begin and end for students at a public school? For Lynn Orletsky, a River Ridge, Georgia high school math teacher, she decided that students who wore Make America Great Again shirts to her class were not welcome and ended up kicking the students out. Orletsky told the students, "Just like you cannot wear a swastika to school, you cannot wear Make America Great Again like that." By saying this, Orletsky is comparing someone wearing President Donald Trump's campaign slogan to Nazis. An anonymous source from the high school told Turning Point News that Orletsky was fired and that the school was searching for her replacement. The school's principal, Daryl Herring, reportedly informed teachers that they should be informed on all federal and state laws restricting political activity amongst teachers. Yes, kicking your students out of school is a political activity because you're doing it over a fucking shirt. This story is only the latest in a string attempting to link Trump and his supporters to Nazis. Unfortunately, this time an educator was involved, but thankfully students were able to record the encounter. I would argue, writer of this piece, Andrew, that educators are definitely involved. And they're definitely still involved to this day. So,
well, to use her logic,
give you the floor.
To use her logic, having her teach kids is like having kids. Sorry, could you hear what I just said?
You broke up a bit there, Max. Try again.
Yeah, sorry. Having her teach kid is like having. What the hell's going on with my mic?
The internet does not want you to make your point. Try one more time. Try one more time.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Having her teach kids is like having Nazis teach kids. I feel like there's a Holocaust going on in my brain, my brain cells.
It's the gulags, that's all. It's just the gulags.
Yes.
All right. Well, yeah, Hannah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to make a point on this. This is something that it's been addressed in other situations, not necessarily on this show, but it's been addressed in other situations as a students' rights issue. And like, you can't wear a beer shirt to school. That's different. You're promoting something that kids are not allowed to do. And you can't wear nude images. You can't inflict on students something that they might have a moral objection to seeing, that it's pretty standard, is considered a vice. But support for your nation's president is an entirely different thing. And I doubt anybody got kicked out of school for wearing an Obama shirt. I doubt anybody's been kicked out of school for wearing a shirt promoting support for any politician in the past that had been elected to office and was in office at the time that shirt was being worn. And the reason is, just like you can't get kicked out of school, of public school, for going to church on Sunday, you can't get kicked out of public school for not going to church. You can't get kicked out of public school for being black or white or any demographic of people. You should not be kicked out of school for being Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or Communist, for that matter. You have a right to an education as a student, or as a student-aged person growing up in the United States, whether you're 5 or 15, up until high school graduation. We pay taxes for that education. We pay into that system. Every citizen in the United States is entitled to partake of that system during their youth. And to discriminate because you disagree with someone's political opinion is reprehensible. It is saying that somebody cannot be educated. It's saying that you're attacking somebody's right to access to a service their family has paid the government to provide. And they don't even get a choice. You get taxed if you live in a community, whether you have kids or not, whether you work in that community or not, you get taxed regardless. If you have an income, you pay into that system. And it's the fact that we have educators who feel entitled to discriminate in that manner demonstrates that we don't just have a serious issue in politics. We also have a very serious issue in teacher education. They're clearly at the university level in teacher education not getting across to educators what their job exists to achieve. As an educator, you are there to give your students the opportunity to develop their skill at literacy, at arithmetic, at writing, and at the higher levels, at an understanding of science, at an understanding of history, and at an understanding of the arts. That is why you do that job. And if that's not the primary reason you're there, and discriminating against somebody on the basis of a political belief that isn't even a political belief that should be looked down on because it's a belief in supporting your nation's leader, that demonstrates that you have no understanding of what your job is for, and you shouldn't have gone into it in the first place.
Well, a couple of points. Remember, for those of you who are just tuning in, or maybe you didn't, you may have missed this. This was a math teacher, not a history teacher. So this person actually had absolutely no basis to bring up this as a point of contention. Not that a history teacher has, you know, the ability or the authority to throw kids out of school for wearing a shirt. But
oh, hell, I would say a history teacher should have known even more, because they should know their history.
They should, but... And
they should know exactly why this is, to borrow a social justice term, problematic.
They should. The other thing I would mention is, if I bet that if those students were wearing Che Guevara shirts, they'd be fine. It was something that I thought about when I saw this article, because I noticed that there was something I've said this before, but something I thought about. I think that wearing a MAGA hat or MAGA merchandise in the United States, specifically in like big cities where, you know, the voting blocks are usually majority Democrat, I think that's actually dangerous, because I've actually considered, you know, buying a hat just for the fuck of it, right? And then I thought, I don't think I should wear this in public. Seriously, I think it's actually dangerous to wear that. But if I did go get like a Che Guevara shirt or one with like the, Soviet logo on it, or some like Karl Marx thing or whatever, I probably have no problems. I'd be fine. Even if there are people who genuinely were disgusted by the fact that I was wearing it and they like knew what that stuff meant. If I had like a Castro shirt or something, and they actually were disgusted by it, I doubt that I'd actually have any problems. At the most, people might approach me and try to begin a spirited dialogue, to which they'd probably quickly realize that I was wearing it to see what the response would be, which is something I've actually considered doing. But Make America Great Again stuff, I think that shit's dangerous to wear, actually. And I think it's really fucked up that it is, because it's just a slogan. And it's actually been made incredibly, how do I put this? It's like so triggering that I think that people could be in danger. Like if I put it on and I walk through a college campus, yeah, I'd run into some problems. Pretty sure. I think that says something. So, I mean, hell, I could get a bike lock to the forehead from one of the professors. Just a random example of something that might happen. Not at all based on anything that actually has happened. So, I just thought I'd share that with you guys. That's my thoughts. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Because it's super quiet and I'm just talking right now.
Okay. I would just say that I think, whereas I would probably get a bike lock to the head, I think you might just get a stern talking down to.
Oh, yeah, perhaps. Or maybe I'd just get told how I'm a race traitor because of... because I did that. Although I will say this, I think that if I did, I could actually be, if there was going to be violence enacted against me for wearing an offensive shirt or hat or whatever, like this one, I bet that actually it would probably come from Latinos that would be extra angry that I was a race traitor. I think there's actually a pretty high chance of that, to be honest. And that's one of the things, and I know this is not entirely related, but this is something I got to say, because I noticed that whenever there is, social justice outrage on the internet, and there are people that are, the people who went after PewdiePie or whatever it is, there's always this like weird kind of thing that comes up from skeptics and anti-SJWs and stuff, where they say, oh, it strangely comes mostly from white people, and their white social justice warriors are the ones that are usually the ones that get upset, like upper class or whatever. I will say outright that is, there's truth to it, but it's not the whole thing. The people who minorities typically get the most shit from, if they're not towing the line, is other minorities of their same group that do not want them. And it's actually some of the most vile shit that comes from them. And that is, I've seen it, they call Uncle Juan, Uncle Tom, whatever. They are ruthless against their own, if those people do not fall in line. And so I think that it's like it's a segment of the regressive left that I think needs to get more criticism that doesn't. And maybe people like me need to be the ones to do it. Because as a minority myself, I don't like to use that term because I don't like what comes, the baggage that comes with it. But I'm just saying that the whole, typically the biggest problem with minorities that don't toe the line comes from other minorities from their community that want them to, that demand that they do, and they will demonize the shit out of them. They will beat them up. They will be violent against them. And I think that a lot of times people in like black communities and Puerto Rican communities and Mexican communities, like the ones I live in, if there are people that have non-collectivist viewpoints, they usually keep them to themselves because they don't want all the shit that comes with it. So they just stay quiet, they lay low, and they just go about their business. So yes, I just want to put that out there. That is a problem, and I will call it out as often as I need to, because the whole it's mostly white people thing, that bothers me, because while it is probably mostly them, that's more got to do with the fact that they're a majority population than anything else. But I think that there's definitely people in minority communities that are worse toward their own people for it. Although probably not so much with Asians, because I notice that they don't tend to buy into the whole victim thing. But that's probably just cultural more than anything else. Anyway. But that's all I wanted to say. Max, you wanted to say anything else?
No, I was just about to say you're the man, bro.
Oh, well, thank you. I try.
There is one other thing that ought to be pointed out here. The school constitutes a government-controlled institution. If it's a public school, even if it's not a public school, there's a degree to which it's a government-controlled institution in that it has to meet government standards, and students are required to be involved in some degree of educational participation. They're not allowed to not have a schooling plan, whether it's attending public school, attending a private school, or going through the K-12 system or some other approved homeschooling system. So they have to be there. And it is a government-affiliated thing. So censoring political speech, and that's something that Hoyce Sandra in one of the chats brought up, it's censoring political speech is illegal. You cannot censor someone's political speech as an educator, and you're looking at a student. You might be able to censor violent speech affiliated with politics, but it's not violent to say make something great, and it's not violent to support the president, even if the teacher doesn't like the president. And it's not just reprehensible, it may actually be a criminal act in this instance to deny a student access to their mandated and paid for education because of political speech.
Last Fraction Zero says, explain Sui Park then. I would say Sui Park is a loser and probably doesn't get much respect from her peers. And that is why she is a professional victim.
No, Brian, you were supposed to say you're not going to enact the labor to explain who Sui Park is.
That's code for she's a loser and probably does not get the respect of her peers. I'm being a, is that whistle? Is it a whistle? What do they call it? A dog whistle? Doge whistle? So I'm secretly saying something else when I say that. All right. Well, I think that we have beaten this topic to death, so I guess we can move on to the next one. Max, oh, I love this story. I'm gonna hand it off to you. This one's funny. Speaking of Trump.
Yeah, speaking of things that are offensive to your brain, ladies and gentlemen, you have to imagine that there are people who are close-minded enough to not have a relationship with because of the political leanings, obviously. I mean, we just had a good example with the last story, but not with relationships, but more like social relationships. What about people who are so close-minded about their political views that they will have hate sex with their political opposition because of the hot sexual tension? Well, guess what? They exist. And you will only find their story within a sleazy publication like Glamour. A stereotypical radical leftist, Hillary Clinton supporter named Corey Lane, spelled with a K, wrote an essay at glamour.com called "Help, I Can't Stop Hooking Up with Trump Supporters." When Corey has been asked about her worst hookup, naturally she cites Trump supporters, but it's not because the sex is bad. In fact, the sex might be some of the best she's ever had. It's because of the fact that they support Trump and display it proudly that renders even amazing sex the worst she's ever had. Here are a couple of choice quotes. When we met up in person, that pent-up anger would turn into frustration, which would turn into a sort of competitive tension that resulted inevitably in sex. Here's another one. And since I was confident in my political convictions, all that witty banter about tax codes, emails, and border walls was the foreplay I never knew I needed.
What?
I mean, yeah, this girl sounds freaky, both in the sexual sense and, you know, the horror sense.
Someone's tearing down her walls. Things that go Trump in the night.
It's gonna be, guys, get ready for the puns. There's gonna be a lot of puns in the next few minutes. I'll say this though, give me like 10 minutes with this girl to explain why the American economy would become irreversibly fucked under Clinton, and this girl could have probably the best sex the world has ever seen with me. And that's not just because I'm a sex machine, but anyways, to conclude, she gives, don't laugh at that. To conclude, she gives an even greater insight into her madness as she blames her salacious behavior on competitiveness. Quote, I'm an extremely competitive person, and knowing that the guy I'm with is on the winning team even though I'm still correct, just forces the competitiveness into overdrive. Even when my annoyance with Trump and his supporters turns into depression, anxiety, and frustration, I still get an odd sense of vindication after sleeping with one of them. At the end of the article, she recommends hookups with people who have opposite politics to you because they, in her own words, are great opportunities for quote-unquote excellent hate sex.
And
Now,
false rape accusations, if you're really
yeah,
going
exactly.
up to it.
I was just about to say, gentlemen, if any of you ever happen to have sex with a woman named Corey Lane, allow me to recommend a couple things, okay? Obviously, use protection. But instead of recommending you use a condom or a diaphragm, instead, tell her that you should build a wall. If you want to get a little more intense during foreplay, ask her if you can grab her by the pussy. Before you pull down your pants and whip out your commander-in-chief, make her anticipation grow by telling her it's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
And finally, right when you climax, make sure to scream a hearty and soulful, "Make America Great Again." Especially if her name's America. That'd be good. Brian, you have successfully used these tactics in the past. Please confirm this to our lovely audience.
Well, first of all, you don't ask if you can grab them by the pussy. You actually, they have to.
They let you do it.
They let you do it. When you're famous and rich, they let you do it. So make sure that she asks you, in fact, begs you to grab her there. And then you know you've achieved making her sex life great again. And also, how many dimensions of chess is Trump actually playing here? Because he just made a Hillary supporter's sex life improved from. I bet he did that on purpose. That was part of his plan. He was like, this girl, she looks really unhappy. I'm going to make her life better. When I become president, she's going to find that my supporters, they have the best sex, and she's going to have some of it. And she's going to hate them, but she's going to be confused, and I love it. It's going to be great. Believe me. No, I don't know. I just think this is really funny. It tells me that she's really fucked up in the head, though, seriously. Seriously, she's fucked up in the head.
Actually, she's pretty normal.
Okay,
have you ever...
She's just a woman, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you ever read any of the really salacious writing for women that is women's substitute for porn?
I know. That's basically like the Christian Grey. This is like the Christian Grey character is the Trump supporter. Yes.
That's just it. There is a fairly common, I don't know whether it's attitude or fantasy of not necessarily being forced against one's will, but having all responsibility for one side of the sexual encounter overshadowed by another person's domineering personality, or in some other way, you know, that you've got a clash between the two, and you're crossing this clash to have sex and so on. It's the topic of a lot of these books, and it's like I've had friends say, "Oh, you got to read this one, you got to read that one," and I get about a third of the way into it, and it's really not. If it's not a book with some sort of adventure to it, other than sex being the point of the book, it's really not my thing. And you know, I don't mind a book that is a horror novel or an adventure novel or, you know, sci-fi or fantasy or something like that primarily, and it has a romance in it. And I don't even care if it's graphic. It can be as graphic as the writer wants, and it's fine as long as there's a great story to go along with it. But a lot of these books, the story is boy meets girl, girl hates boy, you know, boy becomes obsessed with girl, or girl becomes obsessed with boy, and so on, and it goes from there. And there is a clash, and there is a, God, I hate this guy, and then they end up together, and they end up, you know, hate fucking and all that shit. And that's actually a common female fantasy.
But Hannah, she said in the article that that's not what it was. I mean, she said that it's not.
And a lot of women say, "You're not listening," when they mean, you didn't acquiesce. How dare you decide to have your own opinion after I've stated mine? Women don't say what they think most of the time. And that's one of the reasons why other women hate the women of the Honey Badger group, because we say what's on our mind. We're blunt about it. We don't play mind games. you know, except for maybe with them because it's fun to watch them foam at the mouth. And that's abnormal. That's one of the things that makes us gender atypical. And one of the things that gets us accused online all the time of being men. And that's just the way women are. I don't know if it's a thing that's trained into a lot of women socially or if it's a high estrogen thing, but it's very common behavior. And that's all this is. This is a woman having a fantasy that runs along the lines of these romance novels where the main character gets taken, not just wooed and seduced, but actually taken by the guy. And it's just short of rape. And, you know, that it's not necessarily an unhealthy fantasy, but it is an unhealthy behavior. I mean, you end up making a permanent with someone who have taken this attitude towards this person, for this person, and then you end up making this person responsible for himself and you, and more than his share of responsibility for the relationship. The relationship is doomed to fail. You're doomed to self-perceived victimhood, and you present a significant danger to him in that, you know, this is going to lead to an accusation of some sort or another. And so, like, it's extremely unhealthy as a real life behavior. But it isn't abnormal necessarily at all as a fantasy.
That's just the way it
I think
is.
I think the previous story kind of relates to this one. Like you ban it there, and it becomes, well, anything you don't let children do becomes the forbidden fruit in adulthood and for life. We keep telling children drugs are bad, rock is the devil's music, and so on. Now we're telling them not to support the president. It's all garden of forbidden fruit you're planting, like in Barbra Streisand's front yard, if you will. Honestly, maybe if we leave these people their own devices, they'll Streisand everything except themselves and cause their own extinction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it is totally related. It's even a bit related to the PewDiePie one too. But because there is something about, and I think that women do typically have that, you know, where there's something about the person who they oppose that they also find fascinating and attractive. She says in the article that she would never be in a relationship with a Trump supporter. But I wonder if, like, enough encounters with these guys, if this is, you know, assuming that everything she's writing is true, would make her positions on things at least more nuanced, because some things are going to stick if they actually have these discussions and she's talking to people who actually know how to make fucking arguments. So maybe she's just saying that now, but, you know, somewhere down the line, she's going to be like, holy shit, I'm glad I got enough dick to change my mind on some positions. And I don't mean sexual positions. Although she probably changed her mind on those too. But I guess so. If there's nothing else, we can move on to the next story.
Are you trying to suggest that people that lean right have better sex, Brian?
I don't even know. I don't particularly think that, but I think
that would be an interesting study, though.
Well, one thing. People who are assertive probably have better sex.
That's what I was going to say is it's probably got less to do with politics and more to do with personality. And people who tend to be assertive are probably that know what they want, that kind of thing. I think that first off, that's just more attractive to women too. The people who establish boundaries and know what they want, they're upfront about their beliefs, and people who are openly Trump supporters are likely the kind of people who don't care about consequences as much, which is related to the thing, again, the previous story, the thing where I was talking about where, you know, I think that wearing a MAGA hat in a big city could be dangerous. And there are probably people who blatantly do, and maybe nothing happens to them. But I think that there is definitely something in that personality that does make them more sexually attractive and therefore makes the sex better. Because then you know that person knows what they want, you know? And when it's you, then that's hot, right? So I think that's what it is. I wouldn't say that right-leaning people are particularly better. And I also wouldn't say that they all, like, you know, the only thing they like to do is missionary. I think that's a straw man. But But I think that it's definitely going to be people who are, I know what I want, I know what I believe, I have conviction in that, I have arguments, I'm going to make them, I don't give a fuck about what you think, you know? Like, these guys went on a date with this woman. That says something about them, too. That they were willing to do it despite their political differences, which apparently she wears on her sleeve, unsurprisingly. So, that probably makes them more appealing, too. Okay, so, next story. This is the last one. When you're a cute young woman, bashing babies is far from the most serious of crimes. You may have seen the sickening pictures of a baby with bruises all over her face on social media. The 8-month-old sustained bruises over her eyes, nose, and cheeks, done by her own mother, Lorian Norman, who repeatedly bashed her face and body with a serving spoon, one of those wooden ones. After the incident, Norman had threatened to throw the baby from a balcony to police at 4 a.m. Both mother and child were taken to the hospital. Initially lying to police, Norman claimed her daughter took a fall at a play gym the day before, but the pediatrician examined disproved this. Norman, 26, was sentenced to only a 2-year good behavior bond and a $500 fine. Her former partner, Shane McMahon, had posted the story of abuse and pictures all over social media. After the sentence, Norman messaged him, bragging, "So, I'm not going to jail. What's your next move? Even with everyone against me on social media, I still made it, and I'll be having part custody within a year." Shane McMahon, the now single parent of the 2 girls he had with Norman, is disgusted by the outcome and said this is all just a game to her. Norman had faced a maximum sentence of 13 years for aggravated assault, but is now free, the judge stating her crime was, quote, "far from the most serious," end quote. "I'm not being sexist, but if it was me, I would be in jail," McMahon told news.com.au. So this is in Australia, by the way. The judge said despite Norman's troubled adolescence and borderline personality diagnosis, he has optimism that she will turn her life around as she seemed remorseful of her actions. Norman is under the supervision of a community corrections officer and must complete any counseling, assessment, or therapy programs deemed appropriate by the officer. A Change.org petition went viral last week with the hope that in its delivery to the Supreme Court of South Australia, an appeal will be considered. It now has over 50,000 signatures. McMahon is also planning to fight the decision, saying, quote, "How do they expect me to hand over my child to her? How do you expect me to put her back in the arms of that person?" End quote. Okay. This is unfortunately, our last story is actually the really serious one. So if anyone has anything to say about this.
Yeah, this is absolutely atrocious. This is a situation that clearly demonstrates that when the courts use the phrase best interest of the child, they don't mean it. Because it's never in the best interest of a child to be subject to a basically political move. And this is a political move. When you decide that something isn't serious because a woman did it, it's political. And the father there is right. Her former partner there, he's right. If a man did something like this, it would have been viewed as the violent act that it was. In fact, the violence of it might even, if at all possible, have been exaggerated. And what is being ignored here is the child doesn't give a shit who, male or female, hit him. Now, obviously, being betrayed by one's parent, one's trusted parent, would have an impact on top of the pain and suffering and fear and trauma. But at that age, what the child knows is, that hurts. I can't do anything about it. It's going to continue to hurt. I don't know when it's going to stop. And I'm scared. That's what the child knows. What the child doesn't know, and the judge should have known, is at that age, the child's brain is significantly more vulnerable to injury due to an impact to the head than as an adult. And it's have been all these miracle stories where, you know, because babies are more flexible and so on, they haven't been injured in circumstances where you would have expected them to. But there are equally tragic stories in which babies have suffered catastrophic brain injuries because their brains are less protected. Their heads are more vulnerable. Their whole body is more vulnerable. So no, this isn't not serious. This, just because it was a spoon doesn't mean it's not serious. This woman hit her baby in the head. You don't hit your baby in the head. And to underscore how serious this is, thousands of people a year sue for whiplash and find out you can't get, you know, more than a few $1,000s because it's not treated as a serious injury. But shaken baby syndrome is a whiplash injury. So what you can survive to a higher degree as an adult, and it can be that injurious if it's a hard enough whiplash as an adult. I mean, you can break your neck that way. But what you can survive more easily as an adult can actually kill a baby. And the idea that this judge didn't consider that, because you have this wide-eyed, innocent-looking, cute little blonde girl in the courtroom with alligator tears and you know, the Bo Peep face. I'm so sorry, I did something wrong. Can you ever forgive me? And the minute she's out of the courtroom, she taunts the father. That's obvious borderline shit.
Yeah, Hannah, you there? Hello? Shit, what happened? Hello? I gotta leave and come back in, I guess? Hello?
Man is his name?
Oh,
it looks
yes.
like.
There you are.
I hope he.
We the audio cut out for some reason. I had to leave and come back in. You were talking, and I think I missed about like maybe the last 10 seconds or something. Sorry, guys.
This fellow, really, I hope he is able to find a way to prevent that child from going back to that mother's house. This is a woman who should not be alone with her child.
It looks like his fear is she's probably, like, when she's done with this, she's probably just going to get custody right back. So,
and you know, the sad thing is that has happened in other cases. Hell, the 7 years in hell case I keep referring to, okay? A short time before the incident that led to protective custody. And the incident that led to protective custody was the ex-wife's second husband beating the little girl black and blue. Like, she had bruises all over her face, great big ones. And this was a cute little, like a Shirley Temple cute little kid, okay? So the husband who was like the divorced husband, her father, he had gotten together with his next wife. She had the presence of mind to take pictures, and that is what like take pictures while the child was still tear-streaked and terrified, actually. I don't know if I'd have had that presence of mind. And that was what convinced Child Protective Services to give the father protective custody of the child. But a few weeks or a few months earlier, there had been a 911 call from the 6-year-old child that was the child of the vexatious litigant herself and the abusive second husband. That child was actually the reason for the divorce, if I understand correctly. In any case, or no, he was the child from the previous marriage. Anyway, he was 6 years old, couldn't wake up any of the adults in that house because they were all so stoned they couldn't be roused. The cops showed up. There were several children in that house, 6 years and under, unattended, hungry, dirty diapers everywhere. The place was a wreck, you know, and they failed to file a report with Child Protective Services, and that did not lead to any custody change. So there was a situation where this 4-year-old was vulnerable. This 4-year-old girl was vulnerable and was left neglected.
Hannah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Looks like there's lag. Michael Keller is asking you to, if you could, repeat the last couple sentences. I guess the lag is interrupting you for some reason.
Well, I know what's going on because I looked in the task manager on both my computers, and you guys probably, if you look in your task manager, you'll see the same thing. Windows is pushing through an update right now, and I tried to stop it. You can't stop it. It will just keep coming back. So Windows is actually taking over everybody's computers right now and pushing through an update. But in any case, yeah, quite. It would be really convenient if you could put that on hold and say, I want to do this at X o'clock on date, and and so on, and let it happen while you're sleeping. But no. Anyway, so the basic version of this is, or the short version of this is, in that custody situation, which was already contested, you had a blatant act of neglect of a preschooler get ignored because the person engaging in neglect was the mother. And it wasn't even just that child. There were several children in that house that were neglected, and the police did nothing but call other family members to temporarily come get the kids, and they were all returned to the people in that house. And that was what preceded the beating that led to the change of custody. So I've seen stuff like this happen before. I've seen kids returned to mothers that were convicted of beating them. I've seen kids returned to mothers that were convicted of allowing them to engage in truancy. I've seen kids returned to mothers who were basically neglecting them due to being alcoholics. I've seen kids return to mothers who they were taken away from by Child Protective Services because of dangerous neglect situations involving drugs, and then they were returned to those mothers even when there was a father available who was in a better situation, who had family support, and who demonstrated an ability to provide better care. So it's awful and disgusting, and it's a reprehensible act on the part of the judge. And it disgusts me even further to say that it's not at all surprising. It should be shocking.
Yeah. Mom is a thought, too. Just throwing it out there. Her pictures are just like she's got the deer fucking Snapchat filters and... Anyway. Yeah, dude, I'm sorry, but don't put your dick in pussy or in crazy. Just be careful. I mean, definitely put it in pussy if you want to, but, not crazy. Yeah, I mean, Hannah basically said everything that I would have said on it and way more, so I don't know what else to add except, this is fucked up, and I hope that if you guys want to help, definitely sign the petition. Her case should be looked at again. Nobody should be getting off that easily for something this serious. Imagine if a man had done that to his baby. Even with the same amount of force, it doesn't really matter. Because when you're looking at someone that is this vulnerable, it doesn't take much to do some serious and potentially permanent damage. So, would a man have gotten the same sentencing? I seriously doubt it.
And for the young men in our audience that you're still dating, you haven't settled down, and you're thinking about actually doing it, obviously, the MGTOW have a point in and of themselves there. But if you're looking for a partner, this underscores 1,000 point the importance of vetting for character. Behavior that you wouldn't accept in a male coworker or your brother or one of your male buddies, that you see happening from a woman, you shouldn't accept it from her either. It's not just okay to vet a potential partner for character. It's your responsibility, especially if you ever plan on having kids. That's all I got to say about that.
Learn how to identify thoughts and avoid them at all cost. That's basically what we need. We need the people that can coach other men into spotting thoughts so that you can avoid them. That way these things won't happen as often. So if anybody knows of any thought detectors, let us know. Someone who can read thoughts. But I guess that's it for this story, unless somebody else wanted to add anything. And if not, then we'll go ahead and close out, because that's all of them. No? Okay. I guess we'll close out. So before we do, I just want to show you guys the article we're going to be looking at for the after show. It's called How to Stop the Red Pill Phenomenon from Spreading by Chelsea Kendrick. Can we stop the red pill from poisoning others? And we'll see what she has to say. But in order for you to join us on that, you'll have to become a patron. Go to www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio to become a patron and join us on the after show. For those of you guys who are running into lag or any issues with streams, I noticed that ever since we've been moving to this new model, and this was in the wake of what happened with us with YouTube, we've been having more lag. I don't know what it is. I actually have my internet is really good, and I've never had issues with this in the past, really. So this is not my internet connection. This may have to do with the fact that we're streaming to multiple platforms. It may be something up with YouTube. You could also watch us on Twitch, on Ustream, on Livestream, on Facebook, and other places. And if those platforms are more viral... One thing
I will say...
Okay, go ahead.
I have noticed an increase in lag problems watching YouTube on specifically Firefox. So apparently Firefox and YouTube are having a lover's tiff of some sort lately.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I think a lot of people probably use Chrome. I do. And I don't run into issues watching other people's streams that much, although Aiden had some issues yesterday. But I do see that I have problems running streams, and I am using Chrome right now. So I don't know if it's that, or if I should try. The thing is, the only other browser I have is Microsoft Edge, and I just don't like Microsoft Edge. So I don't know. Maybe I should try to use it. I will be getting I have a new machine I'm going to be putting together that's specifically for Honey Badger Radio, that is essentially just built for it. So maybe it'll improve things. I don't know. But what I was going to say is this stream is being recorded as a video on its own separately, so I can just upload that video, and that way you can watch it with no interruptions because it's just recorded locally, and then I just upload it as a video. So you guys could just come back to this later if the live stream is racking your nerves too much, which I completely understand and I apologize for. That having been said, again, if you want to join us for the after show, become a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Please share your thoughts. I love looking at your comments on any and all of the stories that we talked about. If you have new insights or information, or if we got something wrong, please point it out. We don't pretend to be experts on everything here. We just try to comment on what we do know, and there's always stuff that happens and new info that we don't have access to. So I totally welcome it. I also welcome discussion. Let me know what you think about every story. I want to know what you think about the PewdiePie thing. Do you really think that the word nigger should be like, should we ban it completely? Should we allow people to overuse it so it loses all of its taboo power? What do you think about the DMCA? Tell me about what you think about, this Cuphead business. How good should game journalists be? Should we push the get good meme on them until they get it through their thick skulls that they should be decent at games if they're going to review them? What do you think about the MAGA story? Is the Make America Great Again slogan so toxic that people, should not be able to wear them in public? What is the deal with that? How can we change that? And then, of course, your thoughts on all of the stories. This woman having sex with Trump supporters, the mother who beat her kid. Please sign the petition, by the way. Links to everything are already in the low bar. That will take you to the show notes, which is on our Patreon page. If you don't if for whatever reason you don't see a link to the show notes, please put a comment reminding me, because I usually add them after. But if you need to find them right away, just go to our Patreon page. All of the links to all of the shows are there with the show notes, so you can always just look at them that way. All right, well, that having been said, I want to thank my co-panelists, Mike, Hannah, and Max, for joining me on the show. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in on all of the streams. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, comment and everything. Just like spread us out. Spread us around like so much butter on bread. That's not meant to be sexual, but I think it came out that way. So
it was totally meant to be sexual. Come on.
No, I was actually thinking about the Lord of the Rings quote where, Bilbo was basically saying, I felt thin, like butter spread across too much bread. And then I thought, well, it's not too much bread because we're plenty of butter. We want to be spread on all of the bread. So maybe it's not applicable, but I wanted to quote the movie. So I don't know. I was put in a weird place, Max.
Yeah, that was one of the most sexually tense scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Well,
by the way, Brian, is your muffin buttered?
No.
If it's not, would you like me to assign somebody to butter it?
Yes. Yes, I would.
I'm quoting Mean Girls, in case anybody was wondering.
Oh, I've actually never seen. I've never seen Mean Girls. I've actually been meaning to watch it. All I know is you go, Glen Coco. That's the only thing I know from Mean Girls, but I haven't seen it. So
I went to school in it, so
There you go. You lived it.
Yeah.
So Hannah is basically saying that she actually lived in South Africa and then came to America, and that's when all of the things happened. So.
Yep, pretty much. If you consider living on the side of a small town where, that old saying, that's back when the men were men and so were the women. The girls were not. It wasn't tolerated for girls to engage in relational aggression as their primary means of assertion, because they were minority in the neighborhood, in every age group actually. So. You acted like the boys, or you got ridiculed for it. And of course, a noogie does not count as hitting a girl. It's a sign of affection, even if you do it really hard and with mud. So you learned, and then you get into junior high, and you meet the girls from the other side of town for whom relational aggression is their primary means of communication and boundary enforcement, and you're lost. Like, holy fuck, what did I walk into? Who are these people? Is there something mentally wrong with them or me? So, yeah.
It's with you.
Yeah.
It's you.
Like, I might as well have showed up from Africa.
I miss the rains down in Africa.